Well, you're still here. This is a great sign. So thank you, everyone in the crowd. I'd love to see a show of hand who's from medical. Excellent, thank you. Great to have you in the crowd.
Huh. That's going to be interesting then.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're going to spend the final 20 minutes of this meeting on field medical impact measurements. And just in case you're silently rolling your eyes, because we've been doing this, discussing this for 10 years now, we've heard so much about the changes that we have to implement. I mean, it's not a question of if, right? It's just how we're going to implement this. And there is no way we can stay measuring what we're doing the way we're doing it. We just have to adapt this. So this is just for you to know that what we're presenting today is our own opinion and not that of anyone else. And my name is Maja. I actually started in this industry in commercial medical, but I've been focused the past 13 years solely on field medical, on a country basis, regional basis, global basis. Everyone knows me. Who knows me knows I'm very passionate about this. So I'm very invested in this topic because it's absolutely crucial for me to deal with.
And I, like Maja, am very invested in this topic. My name's Jodi Tainton. I'm from Pfizer, Australia. You can hear my accent in my picture, so I'm here from Australia. I started my career in the commercial space, and the last 8 or so years I've been in medical affairs.
So we've seen this focus on medical affairs and the changes that are happening in medical affairs. And 5 years ago, we were thinking, or wanting, they're wrapping up there. So 5 years ago, what we were looking forward to being the third pillar, basically. And then we moved on to being a strategic leader, which we are not yet, just to mention. But now the vision goes beyond that and saying, okay, so this strategic leader is making sure that we're actually impacting patients' life.
So I want to tell you a little bit about a global consensus that Maja and I have been part of over the last 18 months and what we're going to talk about today. This global consensus consisted of field medical excellence and medical excellence professionals from around the globe, from over 20 companies. We worked together, it started about 1.5 years ago, and we worked together asynchronously for over 8 months. It was a great privilege to work with amazing people, and what we did was we wanted to figure out the best way to measure impact, not just from an activity perspective, but at a deeper level, and we were thinking about avoiding vanity metrics. I wanted to mention the asynchronous way that we worked because for me, living in Australia, we use something called the Rumi platform, and this actually meant I was able to be involved in a different time zone on the other side of the planet. So as I mentioned, we wanted to look at metrics from a deeper level, and we kept 3 core measurement principles in mind as we did that. So the first point I wanted to make is that we kept focused on not relying on overly simple metrics. So the number of calls on stakeholders that an MSL makes, or the number of data, observations and facts that our teams collect, that these are really great diagnostic metrics, but these are not actually measures of impact. So we didn't want to focus on that. Then we wanted to incorporate what we call the impact viewpoint. So, was the impact that we were interested in understanding from the viewpoint of the patient? Was it from the viewpoint of the stakeholder or the HCP, or was it actually from the viewpoint of the company? And then thirdly, we wanted to think about the behaviour that we wanted to drive in the external community. So, how could we measure and look at that behaviour? The other thing we incorporated was the stage of the life cycle of the product. So was it in early phase development, or was it a product that was far down the track, but we still had a medical team on it because it needed support. So these were the things we kept in mind.
Speaking about simple metrics, the majority of them are what we call vanity metrics. And I can guarantee you that in any company that you're working for, you're going to have those vanity metrics. And how do you identify those? They are metrics that we are just collecting and sharing because they make us look good to someone who's important to us. And often enough, and that's really sad actually, we don't have control about those metrics. But more importantly, they're usually not linked to a core objective of the business. And if you want to look into in your organization how, what kind of metrics you have and identify those, there is a clearer instruction basically in the white paper. But that's enough for now. And you've already pointed out that what we need to do is still measure activity. So yes, activity measures are simple, but they're helpful because they're the basis of what we're doing. And they help us to understand if we do what we said we're going to do, but it doesn't tell us what happened after we've been doing this. So we need to move forward and actually look at the impact we're having on an HCP level. That gives us a better understanding. And then, if you really want to see the value that we are creating, we have to move to the patient level. And as much as I'm confident everyone sees the value and looking at patient outcomes, we all internally like, yeah, but that's very complicated. Yep. And it's exactly what it is. And we don't have the solution, I can tell you. We don't have the solution right now. Yep. But one thing that we are all very much in agreement is we have to start somewhere. I spoke earlier about small steps, but we have to start. If you're not starting, we're never going to ever achieve this goal. So yes, looking at easy metrics or activity metrics, that's fine, but don't make it the end goal. Use it to analyze and learn from it, and then expand on this to move on to better understand the impact and value we're providing to others. And to your point, we have to look at our stakeholders, which is the patient, it's the HCP, but it's also the company. And we heard that earlier today. I think it was in the debate between medical and commercial. Well, the company also has to get something out of it. I think we are in agreement on this. So the questions that we are asking ourselves, or we want to ask ourselves, and make you want to ask yourselves when you're looking at metrics and how to measure activity is, from a patient perspective, is how does focusing on a specific behavior or activity will actually benefit the patient? And if you're looking at the HCP as a stakeholder, we should be wondering if whatever we're doing, is that uniquely important for medical affairs to be doing this, or could any other function in the company be doing this? Then it might not necessarily be a medical affairs or a field medical measure or KPI. And then for the company, if you're focusing on activities, we want to see, is this actively benefiting the company, of course. And, well, actually, let me go back on that one. So what the paper does, it's a white paper. What the paper will give you is, it does give you, for all of the three stakeholders, proposed metrics you can look at. And these metrics are also, as you said, nicely disseminated over the life cycle of a product, because it does make a difference. And some of those metrics, if you look at those, you can see that just a little bit tweaking what you already have will move you ahead. And then there are metrics in there that, that scream complicated at you. But as I said, we need to find ways. We don't have a process in place. We don't have a structure in place yet to collect the data, but we will need to move ahead. And to the question we had earlier today, how do we measure omnichannel? We only can measure the effect if we're actually looking at impact at the HCP or patient level. So it's going to be a journey. But lucky for us, Jodi and her team has already started with the journey. So we would like to share a live example from Jodi's team.
So like Maja said, start simple. If you read the paper, we could talk about measuring closing a healthcare gap or something like that. But I manage a team of MSLs in Australia, and that was a bit of a stretch for me to measure. So what we did with my colleague Lena Fusco from Australia, and we have 2 teams of MSLs, after working on this paper for so long, we stepped back and thought, how can we apply this locally? The reason why we did that was we saw the value in an impact metric and creating one or co-creating one with our team that they had full buy-in to and that they felt demonstrated the value that they delivered day to day to their stakeholders. So in general conversations with our most senior MSLs, which we actually call medical affairs scientists, we asked them how they demonstrate value. And we had one great MSL who said, the time that I feel like I'm creating, or I know I've delivered value, is when my HCP or my stakeholder proactively reaches out to me. I'd love to know how often that's happening and how much impact I'm delivering. So what Lena and I did was we thought that was a really great insight from them. So we stood back and thought, how can we measure that? So we did a basic survey of our MSL team, and we asked them, we didn't tell them what we were up to, but we just asked, how often are your customers HCPs proactively reaching out to you and asking you questions. So not a med-info request, but they're asking you for something really specific and you felt you've really added value. So we got a number. So we had a benchmark. Then we thought, we don't have a budget to create a new measurement tool in our Viva system or something like that. How can we measure this? So we came up, actually, Lena came up with a great term called clinician-initiated impact. So we basically asked our team, when they wrote their call note, to start the call note with the 2 letters CI. So they were to collect CIs. We also set in their objectives, based on the percentage that we identified, an objective for them, a goal in their semester objectives to achieve CIs of a certain percentage over the next 6 months. So they were motivated. They couldn't manufacture them, but they could go out and create as much value as possible in hope that the customers would come back to them proactively. So then it was a very manual process, but we only have 14 MSLs, so it's not too hard. We pulled our insights. We've done a 3-month review. We've pulled the insights, measured how many of them are starting with CI, and where the benchmark number was in single digits, and we're just slightly above that benchmark at 3 months. So that's the results so far. So that's what we've been working on.
What I like about this is that you're actually asking the team to come forward with an idea, versus we had this earlier today where we're saying, we're initiating this and change management, but here again, having this more bottom-up, saying this is something where I feel I'm creating value, how can I show the value?
Yeah. And it steps back and is aligned to the purpose of the paper. So we asked our MSLs how they could show their value. When you read the paper, it talks about potentially co-creating your impact metrics with your customer. So it was in line with the mentality and the thinking.
Yeah, and actually another thing that the paper does is, in case that you're not in alignment with the proposed metrics, which might be, there is a nice instruction on what to look out for if you're creating your own metrics. Because the other thing is, we are not the same, right? We have different products, we have small, big pharma companies, more resources, less resources, whatever have you. So it's important to understand the idea and the strategy to create your metrics, so you're actually not having a vanity metrics, like number of contacts. I mean, that's clearly vanity metric. And there's a good purpose behind measuring this, but if you be actually relying on what your strategy is and what you want to achieve at the end of the day, this guidance might be helpful to define a few new metrics that you can actually use to measure and track the impact that you're having.
The other thing I'll say about the paper, and we've got a QR code for you in a moment, you can download it. It's not a small read, it's 22 pages, so I just put it out there. However, it's a tool. So there, as we mentioned before, there's all the different viewpoints, and there's around 32 ideas that you can use. But as Maja just said, then you can, if you don't like any of them or none of them resonate and they're not quite right for you, there's a list of questions that you create your own metric.
Should we share the QR code?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Are there any questions that anyone has? No problem. You were here at the last session, so you've done very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Oh, either. You're fine. Yeah. Go ahead.
I read this consensus after the McKinsey report, the 21, the 25, and the 30. And I think the discussion around the MSR role is still open and is very, very tricky.
Yes.
It's very important, absolutely, probably one of the most important points in the pharmaceutical environment. I had in my background 20 years experience as in medical affairs, last role as medical director in MSD, Merck, Sharp & Dohme. Then I moved away from the company. And because the role started to be too complicated, too plenty of reports. So I think it's important to have the measurement because it's fundamental. But before, I think we have to align exactly on the role, on the syllabus, on the exact measurement with a sort of alignment between the different companies, like probably this consensus is providing in this moment. But it's very, very important not to put on the shoulder of MSL too many reports, too many skills that is above their background.
And I think we discovered, as we met as 20 companies, that we were all struggling with the same things, but we were all very different as well. So that is one of the reasons that this is like a toolkit, and it's not a directive. But, you know, so an MSL at one company, their skill set may be really high, and they can do more because they're in this tiny biotech where they're really not even an MSL, you know, they're a medical advisor or this or that, you know. That was part of the discussion, like you're saying, that we had as we met as a group. There was just so many similar challenges across all of us, regardless of, you know, the size of the company. I'm at Pfizer, it's a huge company, but people who are at very, very small and medium-sized companies as well. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but what at the core is the medical communication of information and data. I mean, that remains, and I agree that it's, you know, it goes a little bit left and right, but the core stays the same, no matter what company you are in, actually no matter what part of the life cycle you're in. It's just to focus on some of those activities more than on others.
Yeah, thank you so much.
There's a question over there.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions. Hope that's okay. So the first one, obviously you're working in Australia. Are you looking to create impact measures locally, or are you looking at creating them to build up more of a global, consistent framework?
So I think this was a test and fail fast idea. So definitely we're interested in creating impact metrics locally. However, we do have global metrics as well. So our metric has incorporated with the things that we receive from our global medical team. But if I step back from that, our objective as, you know, field medical team leads is to motivate our team and to get their buy-in. So if it means we're adding another 1 or 2 metrics on top of what they receive that they really own and feel demonstrate what they do beyond activity rate, number of priority customers, etc., I think it's worth us adding that on top and getting their buy-in for that. Yeah.
Thank you. And the second question, which hopefully I'm not going too off topic here, but we've heard a lot around commercial and medical teams needing to work a lot more closely together. Do you see, you know, examples or even a future where there are impact measures that are combined across both sales and marketing, sales and medical teams?
Maja's welcome to answer as well, but I definitely do see ownership of the whole plan for a stakeholder and organisation between the 2 departments with defined parts of that for sure.
Yeah, but I also see that we need to incentivize this, like working together towards one goal. Everyone in their role needs to be incentivized, otherwise it's not as seamless as we would wish it would be.
But my experience has been very good cross-functional collaboration, particularly around insight sharing, but from the bottom up, empowering the MSL to actually use the AI tools that they have, you know, like Copilot and things like that, to crunch their own insights, crunch their own data, to formulate their own insights, and then share that with their local stakeholders. So even not waiting for everything to come from the top down, but we can do that from the bottom up, even in a small country like Australia. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Well, this is the last session of the day.
There are only 11 seconds
We can't
left.
believe you're all here. Oh,
There's
another
one
one.
more.
There's another one. Okay. Great, thank you.
Someone awake.
Okay, since it's the last session of the day and it's probably going to be the last question, I'll throw it out there now. I mean, the example that you gave was clinician-initiated. I mean, sorry to say this, but for me, this seems so light.
It is
this
light.
Seems so... Like, I would expect that all my MSLs within 2 years or 1 year of being on territory would have the vast majority of their physicians reaching out to them whenever there was some big meeting, big event, big slides needed, big information needed. I would expect that to be at 90% plus For all my MSLs within 1 to 2 years have been on territory. So how have you looked at getting metrics that are far more tangible and really driving into what are we trying to achieve by this?
Yeah.
I mean, what we want is on formulary, in guidelines, level of adoption, level of acceptation, number of patients successfully treated, solid outcomes in disease progression, survival, whatever. But let's drive towards that. Let's be really clear about that. Let's stop using, oh, they're happy, they're aware, they became informed. That's not, for me, a solid enough outcome. And I'm sorry to say this at the end of the day. So I just throw it out there to you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'll make one comment. I absolutely agree. MSLs that have been in field should have people reaching out to them proactively all the time. However, I don't know if you've managed a team through COVID. You know, there has been a change in the way that new MSLs have worked, and they're coming back out face-to-face and engaging. So I'll just put that out there. So we're doing these other things that you've mentioned on guidelines and things like that, but the essence of what I was explaining was this is something that they wanted measured. It's happening, but they don't know how much it's happening. They wanted to understand their own value. So the idea of this metrics was something done as a co-creation with those MSLs. And I'm aware that some companies actually, you know, measure this type of thing, but we didn't. So it was a good thing for us. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we're all actually aiming for hard data. That's why I'm saying we don't, for some of those, we don't have the processes in place. Others we are collecting. But hard data, I think, is something that we're all looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for staying on.